Hello, everybody. My name is Wayland Cubit, retired lieutenant from the Oklahoma City Police Department and current Director of Security for the Oklahoma City Public School District. I got to tell you, my career in law enforcement is pretty typical. However, what's unique is that I was able to create our department's first gang prevention program called FACT, Family Awareness and Community Teamwork. It was through this work that I learned how to build connection with at-risk youth from all over our city. Not only that, I was able to help mentors and teachers and other community leaders build positive connection with youth. It is this that I've learned how our cultural intelligence can go a long way with building positive relationships with youth. And so today, that's what we're going to talk about, is how to build connection with youth by increasing our cultural intelligence. So let me start by telling you a little bit about our school district. Our school district has 34,000 students, 5,000 employees, 62 schools, 120 bus routes. Our school district is 56% Hispanic, 20% African American, and 88% economically disadvantaged. So we have all of the security measures that you would think that any school district our size would have. We have armed security officers along with SROs. We also have a full-time dispatch operations center where we're using the latest and greatest in technology and cameras. We also have the latest and greatest in weapons detection system all over our district. So our security measures in order to create safe schools has all of those things in place. But at the tip of the spear, I would say the trusted relationship is the main thing. Let me give you an example of what I say by the trusted relationship is the tip of the spear of any well put together security plan. Last year, we had a young man enter one of our schools. He posted on his Snapchat that he had a gun in his waistband. Several students seen it, no student comes forward. One particular student, she doesn't go to the first teacher she sees, she doesn't even go to the second teacher she sees, but the third person she sees is the assistant principal, one that she has had a relationship with, one that she has shared some intimate details about her current situation at home and at school, and she showed her the Snapchat post. They both put together and said, this is exactly what he's wearing now. This is the clothing that he's wearing at this very moment. We then enacted our protocols and was able to get not only the young man, but the weapon. She saved the day. It is the trusted relationship. He got past all of our cameras. He got past our metal detectors. We're not exactly sure how the gun made it into the school, but what I am sure of is that relationship saved lives that day. So when people ask me what can they do to make our schools the safest place on earth, I got three answers. Build trust. Number two is build trust. And number three, build trust. One of the things that you have to be mindful of is that we can build trust in a number of ways. But let me tell you about one way that we can interfere or defeat trust, and that's by not understanding our own cultural intelligence, right? Once we increase our cultural intelligence, the amount of biased decisions we make goes down. Increase our cultural intelligence, we decrease our biased decision making. And so let me tell you what cultural intelligence is. Cultural intelligence is the ability to function effectively across various cultural contexts. What we sometimes have to realize is that cultural intelligence is a lot of things, but it's also stereotypes. And stereotypes is the basis of all unconscious decision making, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about stereotypes, but more than that, we want to talk about bias. What is bias? We have explicit bias, and then we have unconscious bias. And what we want to talk about is those unattended, subtle, subconscious thoughts that's happening all around us, other things. The things that's happening, the decisions we're making beneath our conscious level, the unconscious bias, right? Not the explicit things, the things that we know that we are biased about and we make intentional decisions on. We're not talking about those, right? So I want to give you a definition, right, of unconscious bias. But I'm simple, right? So let me give you just kind of an example of how I think about it. One particular day, me and my buddy are out playing golf, and he has this joke on his phone, and he shows me the joke on his phone, which is exactly like mine, right? And the first thing I notice is that the text on his phone are massive. And as much as I want to tease him about it, I'm really jealous. I want to know how to get my text that big. And so when I ask him, okay, dude, how did you get your font that big? And so he goes to his settings, swipe, and he all of a sudden is able to change the font on his phone. And then I got to thinking, our brain is this way, right? We both have the same phones. We have this operating system. We open it up and we just start operating. We don't know how it got all the stuff in this operating system. We just start operating with it, right? However, those are default settings, right? We don't know how they get there. We just operate with them. But when we're conscious about it, when we're deliberate about it, we can go in and change our default settings to whatever it is we want to change them to. That is what's happening in our brain, right? We have all of these default settings, but we start operating automatically, but we can change them anytime we want. We can even control like our breathing. It's happening beneath our conscious all the time, but we can, if we think about it, speed it up, slow it down, and even hold it when we want to. I believe it is essential for school personnel, including the security personnel and SROs, to build trust with our students. One of the things I found all of my time with working with students is that sometimes our lack of cultural intelligence and sometimes our unconscious bias interferes with our ability to build authentic trust with students. Let me take you back. This is more than 20 years ago when I was a rookie police officer, and I worked in a small town just south of Oklahoma City. This town was an all-white town, and I was probably the third, maybe fourth African-American officer to ever work at this agency, and I worked the third shift. And as I was working third shift this particular night, I get a vandalism call, and on this call, the dispatcher said that someone was driving around the neighborhood throwing toilet paper all over the houses and the trees in the neighborhood. So I patrolled the area and began to look for my suspect, and I noticed a truck full of juveniles. I got them. I know I got them. So I get behind them and I initiate a traffic stop. I turn on all my lights and my sirens and I pull them over. And as I walk up to the truck, I see 3 white juveniles, 3 white males, jump down in the back of the truck, hiding behind 2 huge boxes of toilet paper. I knew I had them. So I make contact with the driver, who was a middle-aged white woman, and I very sternly ask her, "What are you doing out here tonight?" She says, "Well, you know, officer, I'm just TPing houses." And I went, "I don't know what that is." So I asked for her driver's license and insurance. And again, "What are you doing out here at 2 o'clock in the morning?" And she once again tells me, "Well, you know, just TPing houses." I've never heard of this, and I thought it was stupid. So I took her driver's license and insurance, and I head back to my truck. Now, I don't want you to judge me right here. Please don't judge me. I know that many of you might, but I need to tell you the truth. This was over 20 years ago. The first thing that entered my mind was, this is some poor white trash thing to be doing, right? So I sit down and I'm starting to write tickets, not for one thing, for everything I could find for every person, including the mother. It was taking me so long that my partner thought that I needed help, so he comes to back me up and he says, "Cubit, what is taking you so long? Do you need some help?" I said, "No, I'm just writing these tickets for this stupid activity that I just saw." He said, "Well, what's going on?" I said, "Well, this lady is driving around the neighborhood with these kids throwing toilet paper all over the houses and the trees." And he said, "Oh, she's out TPing." I said, "Well, that's what she said. What is that?" He says, "You never TP'd houses when you were a kid?" I said, "No, man, I've never heard of that." He says, "Well, every year, I grew up over here, every year in this town, we just go and find our buddies and throw toilet paper. It's kind of a cool thing that we did every year. I don't know why we do it, but we do it." And I said, "This is normal?" He said, "Yes." He said, "I can't believe you had never heard of it." I said, "Man, if I'd have did this when I was a kid, my mother would have killed me knowing I was wasting good toilet paper." So I tore up my tickets. I let the lady go with a warning, but it led to some interesting conversation between me and my white partner. I began to say to him and wonder, listen, I was about to put 3 juveniles in the criminal justice system based on my lack of cultural understanding. I wonder how often the black and brown kids are placed in the criminal justice system based on an officer's lack of cultural understanding. So we had a lot of conversation, not just about that, but many other things. There were sometimes tough conversations, and they were sometimes challenging conversations, but they were always fruitful conversations. Because what we found out is what's normal for the spider can sometimes be total chaos for the fly. So let me tell you that we all have bias. Even well-intended people have bias. People that reject stereotyping and prejudice on a conscious level even have bias. So don't feel bad. We all have it. But here's the thing. Your beliefs do not make you a better person. Your behavior makes you a better person, right? And what we're talking about is controlling our behavior. And so the way we do that is we have 2 systems of thinking, right? We have system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking. System 1 thinking is that intuitive thinking. It is what's happening automatic all the time. It's quick. You don't have to think about it. It is operating purely on our default settings. But system 2 is deliberate. It is thoughtful. It is slow, conscious, deliberate. And so what we want to do is we want to not make decisions while in our system 1 brain. We want to try to deliberately move to our system 2 brain and make decisions from that. This is where we get perception taking. This is where we get more information. This is where we ask more questions. We want to get the whole landscape of information as much as we can before we make a decision. And so there are some threats to getting from system 1 to system 2, right? Time pressure. When we're under a lot of time pressure, it's really difficult to get from system 1 to system 2. When we're tired, when we're dealing with fatigue, it's really difficult to get from system 1 to system 2. And distractions. Anytime we got more than 1 or 2 things going on, or a couple of windows open in our brain, right, it is really difficult to get from system 1 to system 2 thinking. Oftentimes, in system 1 thinking, we come to conclusions that impact our behavior. They impact our words. They impact our relationships. Let me give you an example. In 2014, I was asked to speak at a Q Commons. Now, Q Commons is a Christian version of a TED Talk, and this was during Mike Brown in Ferguson. You remember this. This was a lot of civil unrest, and it changed law enforcement forever, some say. But during this talk, I didn't have time to come to any conclusions about whether Mike Brown was right or the officers was right, but the people in my city wanted to know, could this happen in our city? Ferguson's not too far from Oklahoma City, and if the makeup is very much like Oklahoma City, so they wanted the perspective from an African-American police officer. So I agreed to come talk to this group. Well, I remember in the short time that they gave me to be able to illustrate my thoughts, I knew I wasn't going to give any conclusions about who was right and who was wrong, but I just wanted to talk about the race implications of the incident. But I started out my talk by saying the things that were happening in Ferguson was very upsetting. And those people that were out there rioting in the street were nothing but lawless thugs. And I went on to deliver my talk and had great reaction from the talk. But my interest in the case was amplified, right? Because I talked a little bit about it in public. So when the Department of Justice released their report on what actually happened in Ferguson, I was very interested. I spent the day going over the report, and what I found out was that the people of Ferguson were under systematic oppression for years. They were being treated really, really bad by the police department. And I was so excited to learn that the Department of Justice and the federal government had put the town under a consent decree. They were going to take over the law enforcement responsibilities in that town, and I thought that was absolutely the right thing to do. I get home later on that evening, and my wife and my daughter were fixing dinner together, and they were about to feed my 2 small grandkids. They were wanting to get to the mall before the mall closed, but yet they had to finish dinner. So I took the pressure off of them. I said, you know what, I got this. I'll finish dinner, I'll feed the kids, you guys go to the mall. And they thought that's probably not a good idea. And of course, leaving the kids with me is probably not a good idea, but I insisted. And so I took over and they went over to the mall. So I'm sitting there, you got to picture this, right? I'm sitting there with my little granddaughter, who is just a toddler, sitting in her high seat. I have my grandson, who's a little bit older, who can feed himself, no problem. And I fixed her plate in the high chair. I fixed his plate as he sits over there in the little kiddie table. And I'm standing up eating my food while we watch Sports Center on the big screen TV over my mantle. Right, and it must have been something about the Dallas Cowboys or the OU Sooners that was about to come on, because I was very interested in the next story. And so as I'm starting to eat and waiting on my story to come on, my granddaughter begins to fuss and mumble about something, and I don't know what it is, but I readjust her plate, I make sure she got everything she needs, and I say, everything's okay, baby, just go ahead and get it. Let me watch this story on the news. And she got a little bit more fussy. And a little bit more fussy, and I couldn't understand what she was saying. And so I said, hold on, I'll take care of you in just a second. And I fixed thing, and just as my OU story, or just as my Dallas Cowboys story was coming on, this little rascal throws her plate on the floor. She makes a total mess, and then she's crying uncontrollably. I've lost control over her. I have to go put my plate up. I have to clean up this mess. I'm fussing at her. Her reaction has got him crying, and he's upset. I've lost total control of the environment. So I do my best. I clean it up, and I decided, you're just gonna have to wait till your mama get back. You just got to wait. But I didn't want that on my record. So I took the time to clean up the mess, and I got down in her face and I said, baby, please tell Papa what it is. What is it you really, really want? And she began to wipe her tears and calm down. And what she wanted, y'all, very simple, is I had given her her brother's Spider-Man cup, and he had her Frozen cup. She was asking me to get her Frozen cup, right? It was a very simple fix. And what I found out was that I wasn't paying her any attention. I wasn't listening. I wasn't doing any of that kind of stuff until I slowed down to pay attention. And all she had to do to get my attention was throw a little riot. That got my attention, right? And then I automatically reflected back to what I was reading in that DOJ report, where those people have for years and years and years had complained and talked about in written letters about the injustice they was experiencing for more than 25 years, and nobody paid them attention until they threw a riot. So here's what I want you to think about is, are you making decisions out of system one thinking most often when you're trying to build connections with students? Or are you going to slow down and be more deliberate and thoughtful in your thinking and make decisions from system two? Don't come to a rapid, automatic decision or conclusion about people, places, or even things. System two thinking will help you develop true connection with students and will also help you create emotional safety for every student. Now, what is emotional safety? Emotional safety is the extent to which people feel comfortable bringing their full self to an environment. In fact, 6 out of 10 people say that a lack of emotional safety would cause them to quit a job. Now, here's the deal. Quit a job. Our students don't have the choice to quit school, right? They have to come to school. So we have to create an environment where they feel emotionally safe to be there, where they can bring their whole self to school. I want to leave you with this. My friend, I call him my friend because I got to hear him speak a couple of times, Bob Goff. He wrote a book called Love Does. Fascinating book, but in the book, he tells this really cool story about him moving to a new town, getting a new house with a new job. And he said in this house, he had a brand new fireplace that has a mantle, which he's always dreamed about, putting a new picture above a mantle. He dreamed about having a mantle with a beautiful picture about it. So this was the perfect house. And so on his first day, on his way to his new job, he rode the train and he's walking to his new office when he walks by an art gallery and he sees this picture in the window, one that he felt would be perfect over his mantle. He walked in and he talked to the owner of the gallery and said, the picture in the window, I want it. He says, you can have it, and it is $5,000. He says, $5,000 is way more than what I have planned, so I can't take that picture. But on his way home, he decided I deserved it, and so he's going to save the necessary money to buy that 5,000 picture. Months go by of saving and saving and saving, and finally, when he has the $5,000, he walks in to the art gallery and says, the picture in the window, I want it. He said, well, it's still $5,000. He says, I know, I got the money. So the man takes the picture out of the window, he takes it to the back, and he comes back and lays 2 paintings on the counter. He says, sir, I just want 1 painting. I only have $5,000. You're giving me 2. I don't have $10,000. He said, sir, you don't understand. This is an original masterpiece, which is why it costs so much, made by this original artist. It is $5,000, but you get, anytime you get a painting like this, you get 1, the original, and then you get an authentic copy. The original is what you put in the vault. You don't hang it, it might get damaged. You hang the copy for everyone to see. In case you incur any damage, you don't mess up your investment. He said, oh, that is a really cool idea. So he took both paintings and he did just what the guy said. He hung up the copy and he put the original in the closet. And the next morning, he's sitting down, having a cup of coffee, looking up at the painting, and he said to himself, man, if, in fact, the master who painted this painting was to sit down and enjoy coffee with me, he would look up over my mantle and instantly recognize that he was looking at a fake. And he said, I couldn't have that. So he got up from his sofa, he took the fake down, he put the original up, and he said, man, he would be well pleased if he sat down and had coffee with me this morning. His original masterpiece is on full display. He goes to work, he comes home, and that afternoon, him and his boys are playing around and they're shooting rubber bands at each other. No problem. The next morning, he wakes up, has coffee, he's sitting down to look at his original masterpiece and notice that it had a hole created by the rubber band. He gets up on a step stool, he removes the rubber band, and he is so upset with himself because he damaged his 5,000 original masterpiece. He sat down to have coffee, and then he imagined to himself, if the master painter, the one that made this painting, was to sit down with me and have coffee, he would instantly recognize that this was his original masterpiece with a hole in it. And he would be well pleased because he knew that while it was on full display, that it would occur some damage. He went on to say that he thinks that his faith, the guy that made him, sat down with him and said, I knew you were going to get some damage, but I wanted you to be on full display anyway. And it doesn't make you any less beautiful. And I believe that's what our students need, right? They were made perfect just the way they are. They just need to know that they are going to occur some damage, and it doesn't make them any less authentic and real and beautiful. And we can do that if we try really, really hard to build connection with our students. Do the hard work of addressing our unconscious bias and create safety for everyone in our schools. Schools really should be the safest place on earth. Go out there and build connection.